Hello guys and welcome to another programming tutorial. And in this tutorial series, we're going to talk about some basic programming practices to do graphics. And we're going to try to use a specification called OpenGL, which is something you probably will be hearing a lot in the future. And I'm going to try to use that, draw something, and probably go ahead and advance a bit more on, how to render some geometry and have some shader defined. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a new project. Because OpenGL is it's not a library, but it's based on the C language. Okay, so we can use C++ very easily. So I'm gonna go for empty project, and then next project name will be OpenGL tutorial. Tutorial. Okay, and then yeah, I think that's a good place. I'm gonna go ahead and create that. Okay, that's gonna create our project. Okay. Okay. Now I don't know if you use source control or not, but I'm gonna use it just in case that I need to roll back. So I'm gonna right click on my solution and then open folder in File Explorer. Of course, right? Source control is not part of the tutorial, so you can actually just watch me do it and you don't have to do it, okay? I'm just gonna do a git init and then git status, okay? And I need to steal something. Get ignore for Visual Studio. Okay. Look at that. So basically I'm copying some ignoring files, ignoring a specification so we can tell the source control to ignore some metadata or cache data from Visual Studio. Okay, I need to have a .ignore file. So copy con .get ignore, Control Z, hit enter. Okay, that will give me that file, and then I can go here and open that and paste that in, save it. Okay, all right, and git status. Okay, git add -a to just start tracking everything with source control, and then git commit that message, and then initial commit. Okay, clear screen, git status. Oh, good. Okay. All right. I'm just basically want to have a source control to start with. All right. Again, that part is not necessary. So if you want to follow the video, you don't have any knowledge on source control, you can ignore that. I highly encourage you to try to learn Git and GitHub. It's really helpful for you to keep track of your project and roll back and do experiments and collaborate with other people. Anyway, that's just all I'm going to say about that. Okay, let's go ahead and start doing our thing. So I'm going to go click on that to click on the project and show folders. Okay, right click and then add a folder. Otherwise, you'll be creating filters which actually are not folders. Okay, so I'd like to actually have the actual folder structure instead of filters defined inside of Unreal Visual Studio project. It doesn't really create physical folders. Okay, alrighty, I'm gonna add a new atom, and that will be my C++ file. I'm gonna call this guy main.cpp. Okay, all right, and then create a main function. Okay, alrighty, yeah, that should be enough. Just test maybe if this works. So hash include IO stream. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a hello world, and then let's see if this works, right? All right, I do have hello world printed out, so everything works. Okay, alrighty, then I'm gonna move on to get some OpenGL libraries to work with. Okay, so you need a few things. One thing you need to have is this thing called this thing? Right, it's called glfw. Okay, all right. So you go to glfw.org. This is kind of like a OpenGL library. Okay, and it's not built just for OpenGL. It can also interface with newer things like Vulkan. Basically, it adds extra functionalities to work with input, Windows supports, and various other things. So basically an extension. This is not OpenGL. This is just another library that works with OpenGL. Right, so it's another library for OpenGL. Okay, so we're not using OpenGL yet. We're just using something that works with OpenGL very nicely called glfw. I'm gonna go ahead and download that. Go to the download folder. I'm gonna go to the Windows precompiled binaries and check 64-bit Windows binary. Download that, and then open show in the download folder. Right, and I'm gonna right-click on this guy and extract it. And in here, I'm gonna go grab the include and the lib file for Visual Studio. Copy that. Okay. This is very typical for a library. You need to have a include folder and also a library folder that contains all the libraries. So let me open the folder in Explorer to open the solution folder. Right click. I'm gonna go create a new folder and call this guy third party or vendor. It's just different ways of saying it. Vendor. And then inside of it, I'm gonna create a new folder called glfw. That's the name of the library, and paste the two things inside of it. I can also change that library to just lib. Okay. Inside of it, you can see there's a bunch of files, DLL, LNLB, and then another one that's DLL.lib. Those are just different ways to link with the library. Basically, two ways. One is to use static linking using .lib file. This is something we prefer because it's very stable. It doesn't have any runtime errors because it's linked inside of your executable. Basically, it's part of your program. Okay. The other one, however, is kind of like something floating around, and you have to link with it at starting time or runtime. That's why it's called dynamic linked library or shard library. Basically, that's when you know if this guy needs to be shared by multiple programs, then it's better to be done this way so that everyone can use it instead of you have to build it in every little program. You can have one of it, and then every program can read it when they need to. This is very common though in bigger projects like Unreal Engine or Unity. If you look at their folders, look at those binary folders, you can see a whole bunch of DLL files. Okay, those files have to be physically here. They are to be read and ran and linked in. Will be linked in runtime, right? However, this one is already built into your executable, so it's not a separate file, and that's something we would prefer in this case. All right, and the include folder is simple, right? We just have the have some header files we can basically include. I'm gonna minimize that, and then I need to start trying to set up the connection. So I'm right click here on the project and go to the directories, and here in the include directories, I need to change that to all configuration, all platforms, just in case. Right, include directories will have to go add that extra directory I added in. So that's gonna be $solution directory, right, and then vendor, and then So this $solution directory will be basically where we were, where our solution is in, and we have a folder called vendor, and inside of it we created another folder called glfw, right? Inside of that we have the include folder. Okay, that's going to be where we'll be including our header files. Hit OK and apply, and once that's done, we can go ahead and do a include and then glfw and glfw3.h. This will work. Okay, let's try run this. Right, you can see the including is all working. However, if we try to call something like glfw init, right, to just one of the functions in the header file, this will cause a linking error because it doesn't know where that library is, right? It's basically saying, hey, well, there's a link arrow to find this thing. That's when the library comes in. We have to right click again and go to properties and say, okay, well, on top of that, we need to go to the linker and go to the general. Okay, and then we have to specify additional library directories. Here, I'm going to go ahead and add it. And same deal, $solution directory, right? And then vendor, and then GLFW, and then a lib, right? That's the folder. We'll have that. Hit OK and apply. And also, we'll have to go to the input and really specify what lib are we referencing in. In this case, GLFW3.lib. Okay, I believe that's the one. Let's take a look. I need to check that. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. And also, your system should have another library that's already in there called OpenGL32.lib. That's part of the system if you install the, I believe, the Windows SDK, that OpenGL has to be in there. It's not something you can grab online randomly. You just download download Windows SDK, the newest version, and that should include OpenGL32.lib. Okay, and then hit apply and hit OK. All right, and let's run this again. And this time it should have got the same error. Let's see, what does it say? Okay, it still doesn't know that, so I probably have the wrong typo. Let's take a look at that. So that's in there. It's not. Oh, well, it's actually complaining about my architecture I'm using. So because we're downloading the 64 version, so we have to use that. That's probably the reason. So run this again, right? You can see, well, that's all good, right? We're back to normal when we can actually call the function called glfw. Okay, now real quick, we need another library that's actually needed for OpenGL. Again, this is working with OpenGL. We need OpenGL to be loaded properly by using something called glad. Okay, so you go there, and that's glad.dev1d.de. Okay, this is their web service, and you can then start to specify what you need to download, okay, to load OpenGL. Basically, right, every manufacturer has their own ways to specify their OpenGL functions. So we need to have a loader that deal with all those different platforms. So that's why we need something called glad. And there are other things like glue, but we're going to use glad. Language, of course, will be C++. There are other languages I don't even know. So I'm going to go do that. OpenGL here, and then GL will be the newest version. Profile will be the core profile. We don't need it. We don't need any backward compatibility in this case, just core. And that should be all there is. So we're going to go ahead and create click on generate to generate the files, and then we can download it real quick. All right, then we'll go show in folder, right click and extract. Okay, for glad, it's also having two files. I'm gonna just copy that. Okay, and again, I'm gonna go to our project folder, right, go to our vendor folder and right click new folder glad, and inside of it I'm going to paste those two things. So we have an include with a bunch of headers, right, and we have the src, and there's actually a source file. That's the C language, I think. So we need to have this included into our project as well. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize everything, and we just need to right click properties again, and this time we're going to go for the directories one more time, and include directories will also have to have our new glad directory. So solution directory, and then vendor, and then glad, and then include. Okay, right, that's what that is, and we're gonna hit OK and apply. And that's all there is for the setup. In here we just need to also add a existing atom, and that's gonna be our vendor glad, and then src, and grab that .c file. Okay, now just in case that just to test if this works, so I'm gonna go ahead and include our glfw, glad, and then glad.h. Okay, and we can maybe try to do a very important thing we need to do, which is a glad load GL loader. Okay, and then it requires something that's of the type glad load procedural. Glad load procedure, not proxy, procedural, right? And then we'll just pass that with glfw and get procedural address. Okay, so basically we're hooking up GLAD with GLFW so that GLFW knows where to load the functions needed. Okay, that should be it. So I guess we have 15 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next video, right? But let me test if this works, of course, right? Right, this all works, right? No problem. So that means everything is happy, and we can move on to the next video where we start setting up our basic OpenGL window. Okay, see you guys next time.